frock. Once upon a time, one beautiful fine morning, Milly-Molly-Mandy came out in a nice clean frock. Not for any special reason, only, of course, you have to have a clean frock sometimes, and a beautiful fine morning seems a good enough reason. It was a Monday morning, so Mother was busy with washing. Milly-Molly-Mandy helped her to get out the tin baths and put up the washing lines in the garden and find the clothes pegs. For with Father and Grandpa and Grandma and Uncle and Auntie and Milly-Molly-Mandy and herself to wash for, Mother always had quite a busy time on Monday mornings. "Well now, I think that will do, thank you, Milly-Molly-Mandy," said Mother at last. "You can run off and play now." So Milly-Molly-Mandy called Toby the dog, and they went skipping together in the beautiful sunshine down the road with the hedges each side to see if little friend Susan or Billy Blunt were coming out to play. She had only gone as far as the big meadow gate when whom did she see but Billy Blunt in a nice clean shirt, coming walking along up from the village. So Milly-Molly-Mandy waved hard and called out, "Hello, Billy, where are you going?" Billy Blunt had just came on walking till he got near enough so that he needn't bother to shout, and then he held up an empty jam jar he was carrying and said, "Tadpoles." "Oh," said Milly-Molly-Mandy, "where are you going to get them? What are you going to do with them? Can I come and help you?" Billy Blunt said, "I want to watch them to turn into frogs in our water butt." That's a water barrel that you use for catching a little bit of rain off the roof. Milly-Molly-Mandy said, "There's tadpoles sometimes in the pond where the cows drink." "I know," said Billy Blunt. "That's where I'm going. Come on." So they climbed over the top bar of the big meadow gate, and Toby the dog squeezed under the bottom bar, and they walked along a narrow little path till they came to the pond where the cows drank. Toby the dog ran off at once to the steep part to look for water rats. Billy Blunt and Milly-Molly-Mandy walked round to the shallow part to look for tadpoles, but the pond was getting very low and it was very muddy and trampled there. They couldn't get close without mud coming right over their shoes. After a while they heard Toby the dog barking excitedly because he had found a rat hole and wanted the owner to come out and be caught, as if any sensible rat would. But presently the barking turned to a splashing and yelping, so Milly-Molly-Mandy and Billy Blunt ran along the bank to see what had happened, and goodness me, somehow or other, Toby the dog must have slipped over the edge, for there he was right in the pond, and he was in a mess, all covered with mud and weedy stuff. "He can't climb out there, it's too steep," said Billy Blunt, and he called, "Come on, Toby," and tried to lead him along to where the bank was lower, but Toby the dog just kept trying to scramble out where he'd slipped in. "He can't swim through that mud and weedy stuff, that's why," said Milly-Molly-Mandy, and she reached down to try to pull him out, but she just couldn't get him, so she reached over further, and then, goodness me, somehow or other, she must have reached over too far, for next moment there was Milly-Molly-Mandy in the pond too, and she was in a mess, all covered with moss and weedy stuff. Billy Blunt said, "Well, of all the cuckoos," and he reached down to try to pull her out. Milly-Molly-Mandy said, "Let's get Toby out first." So they got Toby the dog out onto the bank, and directly he found himself there, Toby the dog shook himself violently, and mud and weedy stuff flew all around, right over Billy Blunt's clean shirt. Billy Blunt stepped back in a hurry. And then, goodness me, somehow or other he must have stepped over the edge of the bank, for next moment there was Billy Blunt in the pond now, nearly on top of Milly-Molly-Mandy, and he was in a mess, all covered with mud and weedy stuff. Milly-Molly-Mandy might have said, "Well, of all the cuckoos," but she was really too busy just then. The pond wasn't deep and they were able to scramble out all right, but goodness me, you never did see such a mess as Milly-Molly-Mandy and Billy Blunt and Toby the dog were in, all covered with mud and weedy stuff. "Oh dear," said Milly-Molly-Mandy. "Now what shall we do?" Said Billy Blunt. "What will my mother say? Will she be very cross?" asked Milly-Molly-Mandy. "You couldn't help it." Billy Blunt only said, "It was a clean shirt," and he tried to squeeze the water out of it. Milly-Molly-Mandy said, "My dress was clean too," and she tried to squeeze the water out of it. But the more they squeezed, the worse things seemed to get. "We'd better go home," said Billy Blunt at last. "Let's go to my home first," said Milly-Molly-Mandy. "Perhaps Mother will know what to do before your mother sees you." Billy Blunt said, "Well, I suppose I'd better see you get home all right anyhow." So they went across the fields and through 2 hedges instead of by the road, so that nobody should see them, and they crept through the back gate into the garden of the nice white cottage with the thatched roof where Milly-Molly-Mandy lived. Mother was busy hanging sheets out on the line, and she didn't notice them at first. So Milly-Molly-Mandy said, "Mother," but not very loudly, and Mother turned round, and she saw them standing there, Milly-Molly-Mandy and Billy Blunt and Toby the dog, all covered with mud and weedy stuff. "Oh," said Mother. "We fell in the cow pond," said Milly-Molly-Mandy in a small voice. "Toby fell in first, and I tried to get him out, and I fell in, and Billy tried to get me out, and he fell in, and we're very sorry, Mother." And Billy Blunt nodded. "Oh," said Mother again, and then she said, "Stay there," and she went indoors. So Milly-Molly-Mandy and Billy Blunt and Toby the dog stayed there, wondering what Mother meant to do with them, and if she was very cross. Milly-Molly-Mandy wanted to wipe the mud off her face, but her hand was too dirty. Billy Blunt wanted to blow his nose, but his handkerchief was too wet. Toby the dog rolled in the dust to dry himself, but it didn't make him look any better. When Mother came out again, she was carrying the tin bath she used for washing, and after her came Auntie carrying the tin bath used for the rinsing, and they set them down on the grass. Then they went indoors and came out again, Mother with a big kettle and some soap flakes, Auntie with a big bucket and some towels. When they had put warm water in the 2 baths, Mother emptied the whole packet of soap flakes in and swished around with her hands in each till the bubbles rose up and up and up. Then Mother took Milly-Molly-Mandy and Auntie took Billy Blunt, and they peeled the clothes off them and plopped them into the 2 tin baths, and there. "Now," said Mother, "get busy and clean yourselves." And she gathered up the dirty clothes into the bucket and pumped water over them at the pump. So there were Milly-Molly-Mandy and Billy Blunt that beautiful fine morning, each in a bath of warm bubbles nearly up to their necks, with the sheets flapping around them, and the sun shining, and the birds singing. Then they got busy, swishing about in their baths, making more and yet more bubbles. They lathered their heads till they looked as if they had curly white hair and beards. They blew great coloured bubbles between their hands and watched them float off into the sky. They threw handfuls of bubbles at Toby the dog, which he tried to catch as the wind carried them away between the clothes that Mother and Auntie were pegging up on the clothesline. Soon Milly-Molly-Mandy and Billy Blunt were really enjoying themselves like anything, laughing and shouting, with Toby the dog barking and the sun shining and the birds singing. Goodness me, those were nice baths, and you can't think how clean they both felt when at last Mother made Milly-Molly-Mandy get out into a big towel and hurried her indoors to put something dry on. And Billy Blunt got out into another big towel, and Mother lent him some pyjamas of Father's to put on. Then Mother washed their clothes in one of the baths, and Auntie caught Toby the dog and washed him in the other, and then they threw the water out and washed the baths. Then Milly-Molly-Mandy came out in a dressing gown, because both her dresses were in the wash, and she and Billy Blunt in their big pyjamas, sat in the sun together, drying their hair and eating biscuits while their clothes flapped on the line and Toby the dog rolled in the dust to get the cleanness off him. He was the only one who didn't enjoy his bath. Mother quickly ironed up Billy Blunt's shirt and shorts and Milly-Molly-Mandy's pink and white striped frock, and when they put them on again, you would never dream what they'd been up to that beautiful fine morning. "Well," said Milly-Molly-Mandy, "I am sorry we got so dirty, Mother, but I did like that bubble bath." "Yes," said Billy Blunt, "I wouldn't care if I had to have a bubble bath every day." But Mother said, "Now listen, you two, maybe you couldn't help it this time, but if you come home like that again, you won't have bubble baths, and I shall put you in the cow trough and turn the pump on you. This has been the biggest washing day I've had, and I don't want another like it." So then Billy Blunt said, "No, ma'am, I'm very much obliged to you, ma'am," and he thanked Auntie too. Then he went off home in his nice clean things, sure that his mother would never dream what he'd been up to. But when Mrs. Blunt saw him come in, rather late for dinner but looking so clean and tidy, she guessed he had been up to something. And when she saw his muddy shoes and found he hadn't caught any tadpoles and didn't know what he'd done with his jam jar, she pretty well guessed everything. But Mrs. Blunt never dreamed what grand bubble baths Billy Blunt and Milly-Molly-Mandy had had out in the garden of the nice white cottage with the thatched roof that fine, beautiful morning. Imagine 2 dresses. That's all Milly-Molly-Mandy had. We are so lucky these days. Bathing in a tin bath under the clothesline, and there's Toby the dog.